Good morning, everybody. We are on the screen. We're on the air. We are on with Ezekiel. Happy New Year, everybody. Shana Tova. You guys can hear us okay? Hello, anybody out there? Judith, you can hear us?
I'm out here.
Okay, at least we got can hear
Yep,
anybody.
I'm here.
Excellent. Happy New Year, everybody. Gamar Chagma Tova. Right, seal. All right. Good seal in the book of life. We're getting sealed. One second. We did not have. We don't see you guys yet. There we go. So we got everything back set up in our sanctuary. That was the hard part. Mike had to come here to Mike had to get over here, and it used to be that we had to bring everything back to the synagogue and get everything in the shul, like the Torahs and all that kind of stuff. Now a good chunk of it is also getting all of our electronics hooked back up, because Mike Carlin uses the cameras that we have from here. He brings them over and sets them up at the church. So that's all another process. And he's an amazing guy. And I will tell you, he just installed some new cameras, security cameras for the synagogue that are very good and have a recorder and have everything on them. And there's 5 of them set up, including one right there. That's now there's a security camera in the sanctuary. And there's one in the hallway. There's one by the door. There's one on the other. He's putting like 12 cameras up, which he did it as a donation to the temple. That was just something he decided to donate to the congregation himself. But what's interesting about it is that I actually can now see how long he's here. And he was here for like 5 hours yesterday, setting stuff up and making sure we could be and setting up new cameras and things like that. So he was, he's very, very generous with his time and does a lot of stuff for us that we don't even know, except now that the camera's here, I know. I mean, I knew, but he was here. It turns out yesterday he was here from 3 until 7 or 8. So 7, something like that, 7 or 8. So anyways, I want to thank everybody for making Rosh Hashanah a great start to the year. Just everybody who worked hard on it. What?
Monday, he has to come back.
Yeah, he has to come here sometime between Wednesday and Monday, because we don't have a Friday night service this week. It's actually a little easier.
No, but Monday, because Mila service.
Correct. So he has to come here. I don't think it'll be as hard. He didn't spend 5 hours yesterday just say he was also setting up the other cameras, the new cameras. So I will tell you that he's got but he will have to come here and set it up in those couple hours between Yom Kippur and Neil, we are having a break fast here, by the way, for those who don't remember, we're doing a break fast. There's no fee. Yeah, Neil is doing it. There's no fee for it. Just come by and be a part of it.
Will it be vegan?
I think, will there be vegetarian options? Yes, there always will be vegetarian options. I think people are trying to get in. Sheldon, you want to, or somebody, if somebody can pop open the gate. I think there might be people at the gate. I could be wrong. What? Did you leave it open?
I think you wait till everybody gets in and then I'll start.
I don't know. So,
Guy with the gun come in.
well, look,
No,
security was definitely on people's minds this week. What happened at Beth Shalom obviously made the news.
Yeah.
I explained to people ahead of time that I expected not necessarily them to have it, but a lot of synagogues were getting, I shared the story with some people, how many bomb threats there had been. I'll just show you, I'll show you the story as we're getting everybody in. So this was from a week ago. Geez, ironically, from September 11th. This was, well, that was a week ago.
Okay.
A week ago. So last Wednesday, they it said that was since mid-July, 49 synagogues in 13 states.
But the only reason why I think that our CBS wasn't part of that is because they didn't get a call until after 11, like 11:15 and 11:20 about the phone scare.
That people that I don't know what to tell you other than you know, this is a thing now, and we're gonna see it. There's not much we can do because even if you have 10 security people, if the police get a call, you're gonna get shut down. It's not, there's nothing you can do. We could tell them, hey, we've searched the premises, we have armed security, we have unarmed security, we have a bomb sniffing dog, whatever. They are still going to shut you down.
That could be an issue Monday evening.
You mean here? Could be, other than the fact that they're not going to get a lot of bang for the call. No, I mean, look, I don't know. The reality is when I heard the police sirens on Saturday, I was worried that they were going to come to us. But I knew we were harder to find because, you know, we were not on our location.
We advertise all over.
But we did advertise it. So you just had to put everything together though in order to do that. So
Mark,
I was worried. I heard the sounds and I was like, oh, great. But
hey, Mark,
yeah,
what about the concept that they are fairly well known to be, at least that's what I took from the article, is that it's fairly well known to be fake for attention and to see it on the streaming services. What's that all about?
what do we do? Well, I don't know what,
Every threat is real.
yeah, I don't know what to tell you.
Never.
You can't, I mean, I don't know what to tell you, Judith. I mean, it happens at schools, it happens, there's nothing you can do. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you other than, you
Is
know,
there-
people can get arrested for it. You can go to jail for, I mean, obviously you should go to jail for it, but there's not, yeah, oh, it is a felony. There's not much you can do because once it goes into play, there's not much you can do.
That's assuming you have a district attorney that was prosecuted.
Well, it's not even a matter of prosecuting, John. I know you're kind of making, now you're kind of making a joke, but the reality is that no matter who's in charge, it's not going to, it doesn't matter. They're going to take the threat seriously, and there's no way of assessing what's a joke and what's, I mean, they just won't do it. They won't do it. So
Do you personally think that they should find another way to kind of make it less satisfying for
I don't,
pranksters? I'll
look,
use that
what are you
word,
gonna
or
do? Because
people
everyone's
trying
gonna
to-
post about it, right? So even if the news reports aren't gonna post it, they're gonna get people posting about it. And they're disrupting people's lives. So that's what they want to do. They want to make it difficult or take away our enjoyment, which they can do. Look, I can tell you that when I was about 12 or 13 years old, if somebody told me services are shut down today for the next 3 hours, I'd have gone, dang, mom, gotta go home. I would have maybe not, maybe said, but look, I would have done the same thing if you had told me my school was being shut. There was another point in my life where I would have been very mad if that had happened to my school. But, it all depends on your vantage point, I guess. But the reality, of course, is that there's nothing they can do. There's nothing we can do. We've upped our security for Sunday. That's all I can tell you. But so what? I've told people, I've told our board, if the same thing happens on
Okay.
Sunday or Monday, there's nothing we can do. They're not, we can't tell them we have officers here. They're not going to care. They'll be shut. So, yeah, I think it's a terrible situation. Terrible situation. So,
But that's appropriate because they don't know the danger.
Yeah.
I mean,
so no one's gonna say, hey, well, this time it was, whatever. So this time it was real.
I wasn't, it was, Sheldon behind.
Yeah, Sheldon opened it for everybody, but I will tell you, I don't know what to tell people other than we're doing what we can do, and there's also nothing we can do if it happens.
And it's nothing new.
Unfortunately, it's just
You
getting
don't
more
think-
common.
It's more common, yeah.
Lot more.
What went on at All Saints for probably 6 weeks, doors
Yeah.
shut. Guards at the doors. I mean, it was like worshiping in an armed camp.
So here's the weird thing. I mean, All Saints is one of 4 or 5 of the most famous Episcopal churches in Southern California, right? Top 5 or 10. I mean, I hate to say it, but we're not the most well-known Reformed synagogue in LA. Where
Really?
Congregation Beth Shalom is not the most well-known conservative synagogue in LA. This is we're way off the radar. And so if people are going to screw around with people out here,
But on the other hand, there are only a handful of synagogues or Jewish enclaves in Santa Clarita, and it's a conservative area, and it's.
yeah, but I don't think it was because of that. I think the people who did this, I could be wrong. Well, maybe we'll know, but I don't think they're from Santa Clarita. I don't think this was in Santa Clarita. Well, we'll see. I could be wrong, but I don't think this was Santa Clarita. I think this was somebody, I think these,
It's not, because if it was, they would have gotten a call
well, the
Sunday because they had service on Sunday.
maybe, but there were 49 synagogues in the last 2 months. 49. I mean, that's a huge,
And-
I mean, that to me,
And
that's
none of them were actual bombs. They were all just this,
correct.
okay.
So,
Unfortunately, anti-Semitism is on the rise.
yeah, and I guess maybe that's why people think that it could really be true, but I can only tell you, every one of those synagogues that had the threat had to respond and had to shut down and had to close and.
Think about it. It started after that guy was.
No, it didn't. It started, and it started 24 years ago when the JCC got attacked. I mean, you're saying when he got sentenced? I don't know. Yeah,
About 2 months ago.
maybe it went up.
I don't know if it's.
Maybe it went up, but all I'm saying is a national, let me just say, it's a national phenomenon.
Now, is it
National.
international? Is it global?
No,
No.
No, because generally in Europe and other places where they have much better security, they're not gonna, they're like, there's no way for them to have gotten a bomb into a synagogue in Paris because they have better security at the synagogue than they do at the airport. You can't even go in there. It depends. Bigger synagogues in England have really good, every one of them has good security, but they all have better security than we do, let's say, but they don't all have French level security.
My brother was telling me that his synagogue in Basel required tickets for security reasons only this year for the first time. That they are finally recognizing that they need to, that they have to do that, but just this year, first time.
That's interesting. I would have thought Basel would have had better security, but
They haven't felt they needed it.
Part of the security, isn't it?
yeah, but Basel, yeah, I mean, Basel's in Switzerland. It's not, I mean, I don't know,
Where's Bob?
Switzerland.
Oh.
Switzerland. It's near Germany. It's near the German-French border. It's not on the French, it's not on it's not on
The German side, isn't it?
the Italian side.
Right.
It's on the German-French side. Near Strasbourg.
Stuff.
Anyways, yeah. Not a nice way to have to begin the year. Let's put it that way. But yeah. Anyways, let's,
Not deter anybody from coming to service.
I hope not. I don't know though. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that it won't, but yeah, I felt like sending out an email about it, but I don't know. I mean, it's like, I think people already make up their mind. I don't think anyone's going to get an email from me going, hey, don't let them win. And then they'll go, yeah, no, I'm going to come. If people are scared, I mean,
Oh, you're right.
I don't think I can convince them not to be scared. I wish I could, but I don't think so. Anyways, so last week when we read the first couple chapters of Ezekiel, we read about his vision, his famous vision of the chariot or the throne. We read the first two chapters, which dealt with his vision, and we said before it was in Babylonia that he had the vision. He was already exiled. He was exiled before the temple was destroyed. We know he's a priest. We don't know much about him. We don't know much about his life. We're going to, in the next few weeks, hear him do things, and he does performance prophecy, we call it, maybe performance art type prophecy, but we don't know a lot about like what that did to his, we don't really know what Jeremiah's family situation was like, but we do get Jeremiah's anger and his relationships with other people and dialogue. We don't really get that with Ezekiel. We don't get the response of like what people said to him. There are a lot of Jeremiah was narrative. A lot of that too was, well, not a lot, but some of that was dialogue, was him talking even with the king or with people who were friends of his who were telling him, this is what they're telling us we got to do now. Or, there was actually dialogue. Here it's not so much. There might not be any dialogue now that I think about it, where somebody actually says something to Ezekiel.
Refresh my memory, Ezekiel was about the same time.
It's almost the same time, a little bit younger than Jeremiah, in the sense that like we think he's about 25 when he goes in exile, maybe, and then like 35 when the temple is destroyed. Jeremiah is probably 45, 50. Some people thought that maybe Jeremiah could be his father, and there's a midrash that he's his father. I mean, it's basically because we don't know anything about Ezekiel other than he's a priest. We don't know his hometown back in Judea. We know where he lives. We're going to read about where he lives, the places he lives in Babylonia, but we don't really know that much about his background. Last week when we read about the throne, we talked a little bit about the other legends and midrash about mystical journeys and the caution, specifically really about the caution about why not to do that. Nobody, not one time last week, did we talk about the fact that some people say that Ezekiel's vision is an alien, a alien visitation. That's a UFO that he's describing. There are many people who say that based on, again, if we look over at Sarah's picture, that some people say that the description of the lightning, the description of the colors, the description of the wheels within wheels, that this seems to be a description of some type of propulsion system or some type of rocket or some type of transport that can't be described by people in those days other than there doesn't seem to be wheels that function as the way that this thing is being moved, which in those days, they pretty much had a wheel and that was it. And in our days, we don't have much more than a wheel. We have obviously airplanes and helicopters and things like that, but Ezekiel, if he can't find the words for it, might be trying to describe some type of spacecraft or some type of aircraft that he can't describe with the vocabulary he has. Yeah, Gail? Gail? Sorry? Oh, thought you were saying something. So we did not mention it last week, and now we have mentioned it. The last part that we read about was, yeah,
You kind of caught me by surprise there.
yeah.
Kind of.
You want to, well, this is the part. When we talk about,
Low in the sky.
yeah, when we talk about what he sees
You're in 27.
sounds of the wings like mighty waters, the tumult and the din like an army. That's the sounds of it. When he sees crystal, some kind of gleam of crystal on the top, and again, the wheels were born along them. Whatever the spirit impelled them to go, wherever the wheels were born alongside them, for the spirit of the creature was in the wheels.
That's that.
Yeah. And so it's
Oh,
definitely flying, right? It's definitely they were above the earth. And yeah,
You're saying the Midrash.
no, the Midrash doesn't say it. I'm saying today people have said,
Today, people, modern.
yeah, people have said that what this seems to be describing is some type of space vehicle or some type of vehicle that's flying in the sky with jets or with some type of propulsion system that is noisy, that is got colors that are not what people normally see in the sky. And so all of these descriptions that Ezekiel's laying on us are things he can't describe because he's never seen them. So if we're sitting there talking, let's just say if we see an alien aircraft, something like that, and we're trying to describe it to somebody, we're using terms about aircraft that we've seen aircraft do. If we say, well, this thing that I saw went in a direction that couldn't possibly go because it changed direction too fast and it couldn't have, the propulsion, it moved faster than it would have pulled a Mach 10, whatever. We're using terms that have to do with propulsion and with aeronautics that they didn't have. How would he describe it? How would he describe something when the only way that he's ever seen anything move is through a wheel? So that's why some people say that what he's describing is that type of thing. Now, it's possible, again, that it's not a spacecraft. It's possible that it's possible that he's describing something that he saw that is the kind of thing that we have or that we will have soon. So, I mean, it may not be an alien. It may not be something that is from another planet. It could be something that was from another time. It could have been something, it could have been a vision of some kind of rocket or spacecraft that we're able to eventually create. Could have been somebody going back in time or something like that. So the fact that it's an alien, it doesn't have to be an alien. It could have been one of us from another time. Look, all these are possibilities, but we our ancestors, and for thousands of years, we've assumed that this was God And this was a way for God to appear before Ezekiel in a way that
May make sense.
he saw it, he feels it, he imagines it, however, whether this is a dream or he actually saw it, the reality is that his telling of this story is going to be a big part of, like I said, it's really the most famous part of Ezekiel, that and the Valley of the Dry Bones in chapter 37. Those are the most famous parts of this book, and the ones that are talked about the most. As I mentioned, it's also referred to, Ezekiel's also referred to in the book of Revelations a few times. Very importantly, discussions about Gog and Magog and this final battle, this final confrontation that is described in the book of Ezekiel is very important for the book of Revelations, and to some extent to early Jewish apocalypses as well, around the same time. It wasn't just Christians that were talking about those battles, but those are the most famous parts of it. This part of it, where we left off, is where Ezekiel is given a scroll to eat. And the word that is used here is a Megillah, right? It is a scroll. This is not a book. It's not they did have a word for book, which is sefer, which could be a scroll or it could be a book written on a page. The word here used, the Megillah, is always used as a scroll, which is something that is wound up, right? Something that has enough pages or enough material that it's wound up. So it's a decent sized thing. I mean, it's, even if it's a small scroll, it's still wound up. It's not a page. Look, what he says is, well, this is where we left off. Let's it says, eat what is offered to you, eat this scroll. And so I opened his mouth and I was given the scroll to eat. And Rosemary, I forgot, where did we leave off? Right there?
I know we didn't read about the brazen forehead.
Yeah, we did not read that. So let's read. Rosemary, why don't you start us off at the beginning of chapter 3?
Okay. God said to me, mortal, eat what is offered you, eat this scroll, and go speak to the house of Israel. So I opened my mouth, and I was given this scroll to eat, as I was told. Mortal, feed your stomach and fill your belly with this scroll that I give you. I ate it, and it tasted as sweet as honey to me.
So whether this happened or not, or whether this happened in a dream, what's interesting about this is that he actually describes the taste of it. So if he is dreaming it, it's not just that he ate it and swallowed it and that was the end of it, but that it actually had a taste. So that means his dream, and again, it could be a dream, but it meant his dream, it was vivid enough for him to actually have a taste associated with that. It's possible. I mean, look, it's possible it was a dream, but it's also possible that what he's doing or what he says happened to him in his mind happened to him. I don't know what else to say other than we don't know for sure. He doesn't say this happened in a vision. That doesn't say that this happened in a vision. If we look right above there, it doesn't say that. Look, the rabbis are uncomfortable with this. There's no question. They don't like people doing these kinds of things, especially a rabbi like Maimonides. A rationalist does not want to see this happen. He wants this to be a vision. He wants this to be something that didn't actually manifest itself in a real way, that God didn't put a scroll in Ezekiel's mouth. But we don't know. And so people read it both ways. They read it as a dream, and then they read it as a actual event that happened at a moment in time that he swallows a scroll.
I look at it differently.
What?
Not that there was an actual taste, but the content. That's right. The content.
So did he do it though? Did he actually swallow it?
Well, I don't know. Is this written in first person or not?
Yeah.
So
This is
Ezekiel wrote
Ezekiel's.
this as it was happening in his life.
That's an interesting question, but there's debate over how old it is, but some people, they used to say, yeah, this was Ezekiel. The traditional answer is this is Ezekiel's words. Then later on, there was some discussion of whether Ezekiel was really as old as they said. And I think right after World War II, around the 50s and 60s, people started saying maybe it really is that old or close to being that old. It's not, we don't have to take it's a newer book. Newer book meaning that it's from 2000 years ago, not 2,500 years ago. So we don't, it's possible that Ezekiel wrote this, or these were sayings that Ezekiel had that were assembled after he lived. It's very possible. So we don't know for sure, but it doesn't have to have been written hundreds of years after him. The question of whether he actually experiences these things or whether they're visions, here's the issue. When the Bible talks about Moses, it says that Moses talks to God face to face in the bright time of day, and God talks to him. The Bible will say itself in Deuteronomy, with other prophets, God will appear to them in visions, come to them in dreams and visions. If that's the case, then every other prophet, when they're talking to God, is actually having a vision. It's not necessarily happening in real time, or again, like there's a real scroll. So because of that, because there's this idea that Moses, had a different relationship with God, where when Moses hears God's voice, it's actually happening, not he hears it in his head and no one else could hear it. Maybe again, because when Moses hears God, there was that moment at Mount Sinai when everyone also heard God. So, but look, the Bible itself says that other prophets will get to see God in visions and in dreams. So the difference, by the way, between a vision and a dream is that a vision happens maybe as a lucid waking moment, whereas a dream, the person was asleep or in some altered state where they're not, it's not happening in their waking moment. So that could be the difference between a vision and a dream. Okay. So he actually describes the taste, right? He says a taste. Again, could be symbolic, but that's what he says. And so here's the point of it, I guess. This is now we're going to get to the point. And again, there's going to be a lot of this in the next few chapters where Ezekiel does stuff and you're like, okay, I get he did that, or maybe we're supposed to think he did that, but there's a point to it. And that's the performance. That's the performance art where you go, well, why did he do that? Well, you wouldn't do that unless there was a point to it. That's like, you're going to see this over the next few chapters. All right.
Then God said to me, mortal, go to the house of Israel and repeat my very words to them. For you are sent not to a people of unintelligible speech and difficult language, but to the house of Israel, not to the many peoples of unintelligible speech and difficult language whose talk you cannot understand. If I sent you to them, they would listen to you.
Yeah, and that is meant to be delivered exactly the way Rosemary just did it, which is they listen to you. The people who don't really understand you, they listen to you. The people who understand everything you're going to say are not going to listen to you. These people know exactly what you're saying and they're not going to pay attention. And the other people who speak lots of different languages, they'll get it. But your own people, they won't get it. So yeah, it's meant to be ironic. It's meant to be something where you go, oh gosh, yeah.
But the house of Israel will refuse to listen to you, for they refuse to listen to me. For the whole house of Israel are brazen of forehead and stubborn of heart. But I will make your face as hard as theirs, and your forehead as brazen as theirs.
That's a great line.
I will make your forehead like adamant, harder than flint. Do not fear them, and do not be dismayed by them, though they are a rebellious breed.
Yeah. And so that is the lesson here to some extent, which is we already saw, which is that God's basically saying they're not listening to me. Maybe they'll listen to one of their own. Though he also says they won't listen to you because they don't listen to me and I'm God. But there is this hope that maybe sending one of their own out amongst them who's as stubborn and who's as nutty as they are, they'll listen to them. They'll listen to you. And so this is a phrase that we haven't had before. We've had the other phrase, stubborn of heart, right? Kshay lev or kshay orif, stiff-necked or stiff-hearted people. But this one, hiskei matzach, which is a brazen forehead, a strong forehead. What's your translation, Mary? What does the King James say? For forehead, how do they describe the forehead or the yeah, and they say brazen of forehead? What? No, but like verse 7, what does it say? Stubborn of heart or stiff neck, impudent, and hard-hearted instead of stubborn of heart. And Mary, that's Mary's. What about Reverend Lynn says? A hard forehead. Again, the concept is hard-headed, which is why they translate it as impudent, but hard-headed. We would say that today. So brazen is like made out of metal. It's strong, but it's stubborn. So these people are stubborn and hard-headed.
Next verse sort of explains the hard forehead.
Yeah. Well, he says, right? It's like harder than flint, right? But let us look at these other words that they use.
Then God said to me, mortal, listen with your ears and receive into your mind all the words that I speak to you. Go to your people, the exile community, and speak to them. Say to them, thus says the sovereign God, whether they listen or not. Then a spirit carried me away, and behind me I heard a great roaring sound. Blessed is the presence of God in its place.
So there seems to be that he moves. If we look at what this actually says right now,
He was moved not under his own power.
yeah, and it seems like, yeah, he's migrated, he's transported out of where he was, not under his control. And the words he says is Baruch Kavod Adonai Min Komo. Part of what we say is part of a Kedusha, which is Baruch Kavod Adonai Min Komo. Blessed is the presence of God in its place. What's maybe the translation here? Blessed is the presence of God. That's all. It's basically the same thing. What does your translation say, Mary? Blessed is. Yeah. That's just the way you're going to translate the word kavod, which is the presence of God or the glory of God or God's essence. But Baruch Kavod Adonai Min Komo. So we still use those words when we are in prayer. Very similar to the words, again, when we're with Isaiah, Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzavaot. Meloho haaretz kevodo. What is it talking about? In this place, in this space, I'm in the presence of God. So, and here, continues, sorry.
With the sound of the wings of the creatures beating against one another and the sound of the wheels beside them, a great roaring sound. The Spirit seized me and carried me away. I went in bitterness, in the fury of my spirit, while God's hand was strong upon me.
Yeah. So there it seems like he's still in the presence, obviously, of the chariot. that the chariot is somehow part of this movement, right? He hears the sounds, he hears the beating of the creatures. That's the way it's described. He hears the sounds of the wheels. And it's a very loud sound. What's interesting, of course, is that he doesn't seem to want to go, right? I went in bitterness. It doesn't seem like he wants to go, right? He doesn't, it's not like he's willingly going. Okay. I don't want to be there. I mean, it seems to be, I didn't want to go. And here's where he goes.
And I came to the exile community that dwelt in Tel Aviv by the Chebar Canal, and I remained where they dwelt. And for 7 days, I sat there stunned among them.
Okay, so let's just talk about what just happened. So we know he's in that general area. We already heard that this happened by the Chebar Canal, and he goes to a place called Tel Aviv. This is the first time we've ever seen a place called Tel Aviv. It means the hill or the mound of spring. That's what it means. But interestingly, the first Tel Aviv that we ever hear about is not in Israel. This is by the Chebar Canal in Babylonia. So what's interesting is the first modern Jewish city in the world was actually named after a city in Babylonia. It's mentioned in the Bible. It's a nice name, the Mound of Spring, the Hill of Spring. It's not a bad name. It's not necessarily, I'm not saying that it's not a beautiful idea. Spring Hill. What would it be called? Spring Hill. Sounds like a name of a retirement home. Just put two words together, right?
Spring or summer.
A season and a geographical, topographical formation, you know?
So this spelling means the same thing as Tel Aviv.
Yeah, that's Tel Aviv.
Oh,
It's with a B, but it's with a V. It's pronounced with a V. There's no bet. It's actually a vet, but whatever. So, I mean, so Tel Aviv is the place that is by the Chebar Canal. It says it's right there by the Nahar Chebar. That's where it is. So it's interesting that that was what Jewish residents of the area wanted to call their area. Remember, it's built right outside the walls of Jaffa. We talk about it every time we take people there. Tel Aviv was literally not, there was nothing there. It was dunes. It wasn't a city. There wasn't nothing there. Okay. This is an example of an area that the Jews purchased 100 years ago from the Turks, built a city there, and it was right outside the gates of Jaffa. And Jaffa was a Jewish, Arab, Christian mixture city. People would come to Jaffa. It was a port city. It was there. It was probably, 1,000, 1,500 people lived at Jaffa at the time. And they built up Tel Aviv as a city, as a planned community there. And what's so weird, and what people never know, is that it's actually named from the place in the Bible that's not in Israel, which is interesting. I mean, it's like literally you could have named it anything from all the many, many cities that are mentioned in Israel. Some of them we're not even sure where they are, right? There's places in the Bible where it says this is the name of such and such a city, and we're like, well, we're not really sure. We haven't found it yet. And then there's other places where there haven't been people living there for 1,000 years. Doesn't matter. They didn't call it that. They call it Tel Aviv after Ezekiel's place. Okay, so that's where for 100%. The fact that they chose that as they chose it from Ezekiel is actually a reference to a prophet from the Bible who's working, as it says right here. It says right here, right above this, that this was or wait, right here, maybe it's right here. Hey, I saw, oh, right here, yeah. Is the Golah. This is the exile community. The exile community coming home essentially becomes like it's a play on the word. It's a play on the city, which was a community that he came to in exile. And now that community has now returned back to Israel. So what happens to him while he's there?
After those 7 days, the word of God came to me. O mortal, I appoint you lookout for the house of Israel, and when you hear a word from my mouth, you must warn them for me. If I say to someone wicked, you shall die, and you do not give warning, you do not speak to warn them of their wicked course in order to save their life, then that wicked one shall die for their own iniquity, while from you I will require a reckoning for their blood.
That is some information that he's now been told that we've not heard from with other prophets before, which is that prophet, if you don't deliver the message that I give you, the punishment that was on that person is now on you. Now, who wants that responsibility? That is not a responsibility that, like, if you told me that's what I have to do, I'd take a hard pass on that. Now, he doesn't have a choice, right? He's already been taught, God's already picked him, but that's a tough thing, right? He's basically now, God is now telling Ezekiel, it's on you. Who wants that? I mean, so he's there for 7 days. Word comes to him, this is what you got to do. Now follow my directions. We don't know, by the way, that he ever had talked to God before that. There's never any indication before the chariot, before these last couple of chapters we read. We never hear that Ezekiel ever talked to God before, that he had a prophetic career for the first 25 years he lived at his home in Israel, that God ever talked to him, that we don't know anything about that. We don't know if he had a relative. That's why the Midrash wants to tell us that his dad's Jeremiah, so he would like kind of know what he's supposed to do. We don't know that he knows what he's supposed to do. God just told him, you're responsible for every message I give you. It's pretty tough. So again, we talked about this last time. Ezekiel is frequently referred to by God as Ben Adam, the son of man. Translations will oftentimes give you that translation, son of man. Again, this is important in Christianity because Jesus is referred to as a son of man. We're not sure when the Christian Bible says it, are they actually playing off of the prophetic words? Or are they playing off of other words, which seem to indicate that the son of man actually means a God who has taken the form of a man. So there's entire books written over that subject. But for our sake right now, all we can tell you is the translators here just wanted you to have the word mortal. What does yours have, Mary? Son of man. And same with you. Same with you, right? Reverend Lynn's got it. Son of man too. Yeah, the Hebrew Bible, the Jewish translations are not going to do that. They're going to give you the word mortal or human or human.
It's non-messianic term.
Of course, but of course they're going to say that because it's easier to throw that out there. Well, look, that comment actually tells you that there was debate amongst the translators of what they're going to do with this, because they would never have done that if they hadn't capitalized it, called it son of man, and then had to put a note saying this is not messianic. In the sense that other prophets, when they are going to use that term Ben Adam, or when the Bible uses the term Ben Adam, because I think it also exists in Psalms. Yeah, it can't always mean something to do with the person chosen by God to be the Messiah, or a human divine mixture. So, yeah, but that tells you that there was debate amongst the translators of how they were going to translate that. And they wanted, somebody got that in there and said, yeah, and we're going to follow the King James, which translates it with uppercase Son of Man, and then we're going to give that to you. But look, it's good that they did that, because it's actually telling you that the writers are sensitive to the fact that the term is being used for the prophets, and let's let people know that it is. Oh, it's not in yours?
No, at the beginning of the sentence, but other than that,
So, but yours is, your,
it is throughout.
yeah. So the King James does. Well, they know that. The 100%, your translator, Reverend Lynn, knows that the King James translates it with a capital, 100%. And they chose to explain why they did what they did. They know they had to. I mean, they don't have to, but they did what they should do, which is explain we have a difference of there are differences amongst the translators of how they were going to do that. All right, so pretty heavy punishment for if he doesn't do what he's supposed to do. Well,
Reverend.
But if you do warn someone wicked,
Wait.
and they do not turn back from their wickedness and their wicked course, they shall die for their iniquity, while you will have saved your own life.
so do the right thing and you'll be okay.
Again, if someone righteous abandons righteousness and does wrong, when I put a stumbling block before them, they shall die. They shall die for their sins. The righteous deeds that they did shall not be remembered. While from you, because you did not warn them, I will require a reckoning for their blood. If, however, you warn someone righteous not to sin, and that righteous one does not sin, they shall live because they took warning, while you will have saved your own life.
So what is God doing here? God is basically telling him the best you can do is basically do what I tell you to do. And then when things fall the way they're going to fall, you'll be okay. I'm not going to hold you responsible, but I'm holding you responsible for this. And I'm holding you responsible to warn people if they're doing what's, if they're not doing what's right. What's interesting, of course, is that it seems to imply here that God puts stumbling blocks in front of people. That's what it said. It says, now,
Is stumbling block a specific thing?
what does your translation say?
Stumbling block, but in another context, and I wonder if it's a literal thing, a stumbling block, as opposed to sort of just a turn of phrase.
I don't know, but this is a very hard phrase to read from Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur. I'm looking to see if the word that they use here is michol lefanav, right? And the word venatati, I placed it there. It's very clear that God placed it there. It's not, it's placed there. It's not, it's there. It's venatati. I put it there. I placed it there. So michol lefanav, I put the stumbling or the michol. Let me see if that phrase is ever used for something besides a stumbling block. Let me see. I don't know. It's not a super common word. Let me see.
Paul uses it in.
Is it used in words translate, you should not place a stumbling block before the blind?
Yes. Yeah. Here, I'll show you I'll show you where it's used. It doesn't come up a lot. So there's the word michol. You can see stumbling, means of occasion, a stumbling block. The one that we have is, not putting a stumbling block in Leviticus 19 before the blind. Here in Samuel It's not really stumbling, but troubled. Psalm 119 has the word and nothing will cause them to stumble. That's a very beautiful line. Isaiah has the word a couple times. Jeremiah had it once, and now we have it in Ezekiel a few times. Look at that. Ezekiel likes that term. Holy moly. 14 occurrences in Ezekiel.
You don't
So-
say that Ezekiel likes the sun.
It's not a
It's used in
specific thing.
Ezekiel.
Yes, Ezekiel, it's found in the book of Ezekiel. That's true. So it's used in Ezekiel, but it's used a whole lot of times. I think 14 times is the total times. No, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Yeah, 14 times total in the Bible. Of the 14 times it's used total in the Bible, I just did very quick math on this, but 7 of them are in Ezekiel. So it's used in Ezekiel. Oh no, 8 are used in Ezekiel. 6 are used outside of Ezekiel. So it's used over half the times in the word. Yeah, it's used half the times. The root of the word is kashal, which means to stumble or obstacle. Yeah, I'm not sure if the
So,
I'm not sure if the
I found it used to be not a specific thing, but rather an action. Something to make you stumble spiritually.
the 3 other times that it's used, only one time in Samuel is it's used and it doesn't seem to be a stumble. It doesn't. It's Michol Lev, which is a stumbled heart or a troubled heart, which is why they translated it that way. But that's the only time that it's not used where it's a stumbling block or to stumble over. It's definitely an obstacle, or again, King James versions are going to use, actually, they didn't use it in Isaiah. They translated it as rock of offense, or I'm not sure why the King James there didn't use the word stumble. But yeah, it's used. It's pretty clear that in Ezekiel it's used. Well, here it's Misholim is a plural of the word, but almost every time. Yeah, but it's definitely used in Ezekiel. This is a phrase that is frequent in Ezekiel, which I never, thank you for pointing out, but I've not really, it's not a super common word in the Bible. 14 times is not a lot, and 8 of those being in Ezekiel is hugely, it's an example of a word that is almost entirely used in one book. Not quite, but pretty close. If it's over 50%. And I say that because there's actually not that many words used in the Bible. The vocabulary of the Bible is like something like 8,000 different words. There's not that many words in the Bible, in the biblical lexicon. It's not that many words. It might even be less than 8,000. I can't remember the exact amount. There really aren't that many words. This one is interesting, of course, because as I said, there seems to be this idea that people are going to have God put things in front of them that are going to make life hard for them. It doesn't seem fair. No. And this idea that God is going to punish them, including, again, it's not like they're bad people. The line here is someone is a tzaddik, abandons righteousness if they go away from their righteous ways, their just ways, the right ways. When I put a stumbling block before them, then they're going to be punished. So is God trying to force good people to come up with tough decisions to see whether they're going to do good or not? Sounds very Job-like. Sounds very much like what we read last week too, this past weekend, we read about Abraham being tested by God. So this seems to imply that God does that and is at least not making it easy for us sometimes. Yeah, it's definitely a metaphor. It's not that God's putting a boulder in front of us, but that God is putting stuff in our way that causes us to sometimes not be righteous. And again, it's not bad people. It doesn't say, I'm doing this to bad people to test them and to prove that they're bad or to show how bad they are. I'm doing it to good people. That's what it says.
For them to be good.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's tough. It's a tough one here. Yeah.
Then God seems to be saying, see who I am.
Yeah. And make sure you do your, make sure you do your job.
Yeah, and then I will not punish you.
Yeah. But it means that there's stuff in front of us that it's our job to make sure. Dang, I'm sure glad I don't have that responsibility. Or do I?
No wonder people
Or
feel
do I?
that God
do.
has it out for them.
Yeah. But I wonder, John just said, I do have that responsibility. That's a tough one. Because if your job is to stop people from doing bad stuff,
It's their job, hoping doing that. Right?
See, is a law enforcement position. But maybe, gosh, when you said to me a month ago, whenever it was, you said, they take, you take a month on a section or a chapter or a clause and dissect it word by word by word. My God, it feels like law school again. You literally could take a chapter or a phrase and analyze it. I guess you could go crazy. You're crazy.
all I can tell you is I don't love this. I don't love the theological ramifications of this, because it does tell us that we are responsible for, or somebody is. I don't know. God's
You're
never,
responsible to do the best you can.
yeah, to warn
Influence those in your
people,
sphere.
to warn people.
You have to do the best you can. That's all you can do.
I hope, yeah. Look,
If you see
definitely
something, say something.
yeah,
There you go.
I definitely think you could say that you could say that God doesn't put the stumbling blocks there maliciously. That's just the way, that's just the way it is. There's chutes and ladders on this board. But I just don't know whether,
That's part of the sermon.
I don't know that I like the idea that I'm responsible for warning people, because it's not just because I'm not really sure always what to do, but it's like, because it's a big part of it. But I also think that well, look, God's never told me to do this. God never told me I have to start warning people.
Well, you got to pull the layer back behind you. Something inspired you to.
Yeah, I understand.
Those pinnacles.
The answer that most people would give today was that, or actually not today, but for the last 2,400 years, is that God doesn't speak through prophets because we have the prophecy here. We don't need to do that anymore. Ezekiel said it. And so now that it's written, you don't need Ezekiel or an Ezekiel-like person to come back and say this, because it's already been said. That's the good thing about it, is that the age of prophecy is over. And so no prophet has to be sent to do this kind of thing. But by extension, it does the next generation of people who are supposed to interpret this, or the rabbis, or however you want to look at it. It's interesting, by the way, because the Midrash on Ezekiel is that it's interesting because the rabbi said this 2,000 years ago, that Ezekiel's book was actually edited by the men of the Great Assembly, who lived 300 years after Ezekiel. So there's almost like an understanding that Ezekiel as a book was kind of edited together later. So I will tell you that there is that tradition, but they already thought that the age of prophecy was over by then by the men of the Great Assembly. So I don't know. I mean, but the fact that the rabbi said that, I don't know. It is interesting that they seem to think that this book was edited, that was at least edited fairly late. The Septuagint is almost exactly the same as, I think that I looked it up. I think there's there's only 8 different verses. Like the verses are different. They're not totally different even. There's 8 different verses in the whole book of Ezekiel, and the hundreds of verses. There's like 8 different verses. That's it. So it's almost the same as the Septuagint. There are some, I mean, again, which ones are older, and then we found other copies of it, obviously in Dead Sea Scrolls. Some there are even some variations, but it's pretty solid. It's a pretty solid book. It's not like Samuel where we have these, whole sections that are missing, or line, I don't want to say sections, not chapters, but there's verses that are missing from whole sections that are missing from Samuel. Anyways, I don't know. We could say that these people they need to be told by the prophet, God's still with you and God's still checking on you in the exile. All right. So this is what Ezekiel's being told to do.
Then God's hand came upon me there, and I was told, arise, go out to the valley, and there I will speak with you. I arose and went out to the valley, and there stood the presence of God, like the presence that I had seen at the Chabar Canal, and I flung myself down on my face. And a spirit entered into me and set me upon my feet. And God spoke to me and said to me, go, shut yourself up in your house.
Yes. So John, what are you saying?
His hands,
Yes. Yes.
that's important.
Yeah. And so it seems as though the presence of God, when God is speaking to him in some form of presence. He says it was just like the vision that he had of the Chabar Canal, that God is there. And this is a week after, this is after he'd been in Tel Aviv for a week. I think he's still here for the week. Doesn't say any more time had passed. And he is still being moved around by God. Literally, a spirit is moving me. And again, the spirit tells him, go into your house.
As for you, O mortal, cords have been placed upon you, and you have been bound with them, and you shall not go out among the people. And I will make your tongue cleave to your palate, and you shall be dumb. You shall not be a reprover to them, for they are a rebellious breed. But when I speak with you, I will open your mouth, and you shall say to them, thus says the sovereign God, whoever listens will listen, and whoever does not will not, for they are a rebellious breed.
So it seems as though Ezekiel's given some time out. You're going to stay in the house. You're not going to say anything. And then when I tell you to go out and speak, you'll open your mouth and you're going to tell them, listen, right? Listen, Ko Amar Adonai, this is what God's got for you. And some will listen and some will not. All right. Now, he's still being called Ben Adam. He's still called Son of Man, immortal. Here comes the performance.
And
These are
you,
in front of other people.
and you, O mortal, take a brick and put it in front of you, and incise on it a city, Jerusalem. Set up a siege against it, and build towers against it, and cast a mound against it, pitch camps against it, and bring up battering rams round about it. Then take an iron plate and place it as an iron wall between yourself and the city, and set your face against it. Thus it shall be under siege. You shall besiege it. This shall be an omen for the house of Israel.
Okay, so what's your translation say, Reverend Lynn, about this?
From where?
on your commentary on this first three verses.
There. 21.
No, chapter 4, 1-3, this issue about the brick.
Symbolic actions describing the coming siege of Jerusalem. A sun-dried brick, common in Babylonian, with a relief drawing of Jerusalem under siege. And the iron plate of brittle symbolizing God's rule in Jerusalem's fall.
Yeah, so it seems as though,
Like a diorama.
correct. And the diorama, as Reverend Lynn's saying, is got a brick in it, according to this description. And there's some kind of iron plate. Again, probably something that was used. It seems as though to be used for cooking, or maybe some type of iron. Obviously something that can take immense amounts of heat. And again, if it's not a cooking utensil, it's probably used for smelting or something used around intense heat. Point of which is that we're going to show how Jerusalem is going to be destroyed. Now, again, what you have to remember, he's in exile before Jerusalem is destroyed. So he's playing this out for Jews who are already in exile, who are hoping they're going to go back home, wondering what's going to happen back at their home. And he's telling them, your home is going to be destroyed, which is not something that they really want to hear. They want to hear they're going to go back home. He's now telling them, you're not going back home.
This whole diorama thing is very confusing.
Oh, it's going to get weirder. You think it's weird now. This is actually, I mean, it seems a little bit hard to understand because there seems to be some stuff we don't understand about the way he's acting this out. Like, the words are the words. I mean, we know there's an iron something. Is it representing, again, the Babylonians as iron? Is there something about the heat? Is there something about the fact that this is made out of brick and that's nothing compared to the iron? I mean, the iron and brick are words that we know that they're there. Are there other metaphors here that we don't understand? They're play on words, they're play on idioms and stuff at the time. Probably there's some stuff here we probably don't get because we don't understand the language exactly the way they did. And we know the words are there. We just don't understand exactly why these words are being used the way they are, because it seems as though, like, okay, he's playing this out with a bunch of objects, but there must be something more to this that we don't understand. So we understand that, I mean, it doesn't matter. It says this is an omen. This is going to show what's going to happen. This is going to remind us of what is about to happen.
Is this what you mean by
Performs. Yeah, and it's going to get even more physical in a second. This is very physical.
Then lie on your left side and let it bear the punishment of the house of Israel. For as many days as you lie on it, you shall bear their punishment. For I impose upon you 390 days, corresponding to the number of the years of their punishment. And so you shall bear the punishment for the house of Israel.
What?
What?
A day for every year that they were supposed to be punished for. 400 years they're supposed to be punished for. And now you're going to lie on your side for a year and a month while this is happening. Your body is going to bear the brunt of this. Any interesting commentary you've got over there, Reverend?
Well, it
Lynn?
says 390 days is similar to years of punishment to Judah. And then lie on the right side for 40 days.
Oh, we haven't gotten there yet. We'll read this one.
When you have completed these, you shall lie another 40 days on your right side and bear the punishment of the house of Judah. I impose on you 1 day for each year.
Okay, so there's another What? To feed him. He's getting fed while he's there. I read one commentary the other day that he's the scapegoat. He's like the scapegoat that we're about to read at Yom Kippur, that his body is now being abused as a sign of what's happening. So, okay, the brick and the iron and that kind of stuff, okay, I guess it's diorama. Now his body is physically being abused by the elements, people. What's going on here? He's literally taking on, his body is taking on the punishments that the people need to be punished for.
Did I miss it? Has he complained once yet?
He hasn't complained yet.
Has he not said, God, why are you?
Nope,
why
he
did you
doesn't.
choose me?
He doesn't seem to have any of the stuff that Moses says when he gets chosen. Look, Isaiah and Jeremiah that we've read already never seem to say, why are you choosing me? Moses does, but these guys don't seem to do that.
It did say that.
Yeah, he said, yeah, you're right. It did say he was bitter doing what he was doing. Jonah definitely doesn't want to go, but Jonah,
Well, it has to be.
yeah,
Where was that?
these guys, yeah, it was just the last chapter that he was bitter. He doesn't seem to,
But God has peculiar things of people.
yeah, and it doesn't,
I don't want to do that. And God doesn't ask for.
well, it's not only that. Is he bitter because he's doing this, or is he bitter because God's told him they're not going to listen to you even after you do all this? It's not really sure. And again, there doesn't seem to be, even if he's bitter about it, it doesn't really seem to be explanation of that. He doesn't seem to be. So here's the line that Mary's talking about.
I got it.
I went in bitterness in the fury of my spirit while God's hand was strong against me. So that is the,
Oh, well, there he is. He complained. I missed it.
Yeah.
Back then. Okay.
in the fury of my spirit. Yeah, but we're not really sure if he's doing this because he's already been told they're not going to listen to you. I'm not sure. I mean, it does say that though. But this is a long time to have your body be lying down as this is happening. I mean, are we supposed to imagine that, that this literally happened, that the guy laid down there and again, the literal understanding of it is that he did do this. I mean, when you talk about literalists, they say, yeah, he was lying down there the whole time. People came by and fed him and took care of him while he was lying there on the side of the road or wherever he is, and this is what he does.
Then with bared arm, set your face toward besieged Jerusalem and prophesy against it. Now I put cords upon you so that you cannot turn from side to side until you complete your days of siege.
Yeah. You don't have a choice, right? There's a better issue. Does he even have a choice in the matter? Do you, if your body can't even, if your body can't even move, right? He just doesn't have a choice.
It's gonna be a good shape when it finally gets out.
He's going to have a crick in his neck. Yeah. It's going to need some stuff. Yep. This is not an easy thing for his body. And here's what happens when he gets up.
Further, take wheat, barley, beans, lentils, millet, and emmer. Put them into one vessel and bake them into bread. Eat it as many days as you lie on your side, 390. The food that you eat shall be by weight 20 shekels a day. This you shall eat in the space of a day.
Now, this seems pretty weird. Why is this poor man having to eat the same kind of bread every day?
Almost like the manna.
Yeah, a little bit. What's going on with these grains? Everybody's got it. You see wheat, barley, kind of normal kinds of grain. It's a kind of wheat. Or is it wheat or barley, Rosemary? I think it's wheat.
Well, yeah,
What?
keeps them regular.
I guess. Guess what?
We,
You can find this bread on the shelves.
Ezekiel.
I don't eat it. but-
It is. You can see what it says, Ezekiel 4:9 bread. You can buy this at the grocery store right now,
It's in the
as described in the Holy Scriptures. What? You can get it at Ralph's.
Still too much starch.
refrigerated section.
Oh, is it? I thought it was on the shelf. It used to be. All natural, no preservatives, right? So, as described in the Holy Scripture verse, take that. Complete protein, no trans fats. Yeah, that's at Walmart. Yeah, so yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's frozen. She's right. It says frozen right there, but you can get it.
Trader
So the-
Joe's too.
That's right.
Trader Joe's, yeah. So it's actually called Ezekiel 4:9. So he doesn't, it's been a long time. I haven't eaten it in a while. But it has all the grains in it. And somebody said, hey, it's in the Bible, so we better put that into bread. Ezekiel doesn't have a choice. God tells him he's going to eat it, and God tells him he's going to eat it for 390 days. So it seems as though that's not exactly what you want to do. So it seems as though that's what he's eating while he's on his side, by the way. So, yeah, it is not does not seem like it'd be something he'd want to do. And here's what it says.
And you shall drink water by measure. Drink 1/6 of a hin in the space of a day.
Now, is that a lot of water? Does that seem like a lot of water? Just so you know, if you look at it said 1/6 of a hin, right? It didn't say, well, you have to drink a whole hin. A hin is about 1.5 gallons. It's about 6 liters. So to use it in a very simple measurement, it would be 1 liter of water. You can live on that, but it's not, I don't think anyone would say you're really, really hydrated if you're only drinking 1 liter of water and that's all you're having. That's true. But you can live on it. Yeah. You can live on 1 liter of water and bread every day. That's what he's eating. Water and bread. And,
It's almost as if he has to bake it before.
oh, he has to have it. Yeah.
Set up in store. Even tells him how to cook.
Yeah. Well, and this is not the way you normally want to eat your food, but here it goes.
Eat it as a barley cake. You shall bake it on human excrement before their eyes. So, said God, shall the people of
Well,
Israel
it
eat
says
their
why.
bread impure among the nations to which I will banish them.
Yeah. At least here, it seems to be the fact that it's because they're going to be living outside of the land of Israel, where they're not going to be able to have pure food anymore. Yeah, you're not. It's not that he's eating it on poop. It's using that as the fuel for the fire. It's not what you want to use as fuel for fire.
Oh.
But in all fairness, they used dung for fire. So it's not like it's not as weird as you think it is, but it's not normal. It's not normal that you use human excrement for fire, for the fire. So it's not what you're supposed to do. but it's another level of this performance. Because it says they're supposed to see it before their eyes. So you're not only supposed to eat it, but you're supposed to cook it in a way that they're going to pay attention to. And he actually tells them why. It's not like, oh, go figure out why I'm doing it. He has to be told why. And it says why.
So you're interpreting this, so 12, as the dung as the heating source to bake?
For sure, that's what they use. They use dung for fire.
You know, I get that, but mine says, and thou shalt eat it as, this is like Mary's, because mine are Mary's is the same, as barley cakes, and thou shalt bake it with dung. Right, but you're saying that cometh out of man in their sight. I don't see it.
What does yours say, Reverend Lynn?
In their sight on him.
Yeah.
Oh, you,
But this footnote also, and we're not there yet, but it says that the people practice cannibalism.
Correct. But
But I just read it, I can't see it.
back then?
well, let's read more. Let's read on. I mean, I don't think that the text itself doesn't say that that's what it has to be, which is, look, even if they're eating it and it is mixed with human excrement, which there's definitely you can see there's definitely translations where, I mean, I don't think it is, because the Hebrew says, well, it says, the word "bet," which can mean and, on, with, on top of. I mean, it's all possibilities, which is, but it doesn't, I mean, I guess it could be that the excrement is in the bread.
Have we gotten to 13 yet?
Yeah.
So mine says, and the Lord said, even thus shall the children of Israel eat their defiled bread among the nations.
It says unclean.
Okay, so let's just see.
We
Real,
really have spent this whole 2 years.
No, no,
spent
let-
time on some very interesting.
here, let's look at what the Talmud says. So the Talmud says, Rav Papa said that bread of Ezekiel was roasted in human excrement, as it is written, and you shall eat it as barley cakes, and you shall bake it with human excrement in their sight. Well, the Talmud says that it's at least possible that it had human excrement in it.
That's not cannibalism.
I don't see it. I don't see it as cannibalism. I don't know. I mean, that one doesn't really,
Moving on.
that one doesn't really add that much, that commentary doesn't add that much to it, but let me just see if there's any other, there is no other commentary on it. Rashi.
Jeremiah 19:9 says, and I will make them eat the flesh of their sons and daughters.
Well, that we have we have that in Jeremiah, and we had, yes, and we have that in Lamentations, in the book of Lamentations. It definitely happened, but I don't see it. I don't see cannibalism being alluded to here. This is more like either it's on top of the human excrement or it's mixed in with your bread. But the point of it being, because you're living in exile now, your bread is essentially turned to being mixed with poop. So that's what I would take it with.
The mix of ingredients indicates this scarcity of foodstuffs, not unfairness.
Yes, though the only you could think of is that the bread itself being mixed is a reflection of not having bread that's like pure bread. But gosh, I mean, that's why I've always read it as kind of, this is just bread that you're just eating bread. I can tell you one thing. I don't want to eat Ezekiel 4:9 anymore.
No wonder it tastes
I'm-
so dry.
Not eating not eating that bread. It's making you regular. Jeez, there's regular in there. It's got regular there. Oh, geez. So yeah, let's read a little bit further. Wow. Okay, so he's drinking. No, it's not, but it's clearly, but if he's being told by God to eat it like that.
Punishment.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Here's what he says.
Then I said, "Oh, my sovereign God, my person was never defiled, nor have I eaten anything that died of itself, or was torn by beasts from my youth until now, nor has foul flesh entered my mouth."
Yeah. And so what he says is, I have never eaten anything other than kosher food. I've never had anything other than what I'm biblically allowed to have. Right. So why are you telling me to eat weird stuff that doesn't seem to be like what people would normally eat? And the word that we use here is the same word we use today, treif. I'm not eating treifa or nevilah. Nevilah is like roadkill, but treifa is something that has been torn. That's what the word treif means. It means torn by wild beasts. So nevilah translated as died by itself. Roadkill is usually not killed, but it was killed by a car, but that dead animal that you see on the side of the road. But whatever. And here's what God says.
The answer came, "See, I allow you cow's dung instead of human excrement. Prepare your bread on that." And I was told, "O mortal, I am going to break the staff of bread in Jerusalem, and they shall eat bread by weight in anxiety and drink water by measure in horror, so that lacking bread and water, they shall stare at each other, heartsick over their iniquity."
Yeah. So the cow's dung seems to be they settle on it, but I mean, look, here it says specifically on top of. I mean, what does yours say, Mary? King James says 15.
"Lo, I have given thee cow's dung for man's, and thou shalt prepare thy bread therewith."
Okay. What does yours say, Lynn?
See, I will let you have cow's dung instead of human dung on which you period.
On which you may prepare your bread. I mean, the word alehem means on or on top of. So, whatever. I mean, whatever he says, he doesn't want to have human excrement as the fuel to cook it with. But the idea that it's mixed in with the food, I don't know. I mean, I guess Talmud says it's least possible. But having human dung versus cow dung, like or neither one of them being in the bread make it kosher or not kosher. It's just not right. It's not the way like a person would do it. But look, I mean,
This is meant to be a burden, right? What's the whole purpose?
Is
of
dung considered vegetarian?
isn't vegetarian. Oh, geez. Well, he doesn't seem to think it is, by the way. He doesn't seem to think that human dung is vegetarian, but definitely is this worry that he's going to consume it somehow. Because he does say, I haven't had any food that's been unkosher. All right, now that's the way he eats. Now we're going to get into some grooming, and that's what we'll finish with today. His grooming tips. It's not, these are not, this is, well, let's read it. It's another weird, like, also, how do we translate this? But here we go.
And you, O mortal, take a sharp knife, use it as a barber's razor, and pass it over your head and beard. Then take scales and divide the hair. When the days of siege are completed, destroy a third part in fire in the city, take a third and strike it with a sword all around the city, and scatter a third to the wind, and unsheathe the sword after them.
Yeah, so he's shaving his body off, his hair on his head, and it says right here on his beard. So his hair and his beard, he's taking it, he's dividing his hair into three parts, the thirds, whatever. And some of it he's burning. Some of it he's hitting with a sword. He's hitting his hair with a sword, cutting it up, maybe chopping it up with a sword. And then the last part, he's throwing it out into the
Take
wind.
also a few hairs from there and tie them up in your skirts, and take some more of them and cast them into the fire and burn them in the fire. From this, a fire shall go out upon the whole house of Israel. Thus said the sovereign God, I set this Jerusalem in the midst of nations, with countries round about her. But she rebelled against my rules and my laws, acting more wickedly than the nations and the countries round about her. She rejected my rules and disobeyed my laws. Assuredly, thus said the sovereign God, because you have outdone the nations that are round about you, you have not obeyed my laws or followed my rules, nor have you even observed the rules of the nations round about you. Assuredly, thus said the sovereign God, I in turn am going to deal with you, and I will execute judgments in your midst in the sight of the nations. On account of all your abominations, I will do among you what I have never done, and the like of which I will never do again. Assuredly, parents shall eat their children in your midst, and children shall eat their parents. I will execute judgments against you, and I will scatter all your survivors in every direction.
Now there's cannibalism. There's cannibalism. But it's not right at that point, right? It's actually after the other vision of or not the other performance of the hair, of what the hair is going to teach. Yeah. Yeah. It pagan is definitely there. He's not cutting his body, but he's definitely cutting his hair. Having the hair on his body being cut and then destroying it in the ways that Jerusalem is going to be destroyed, and in two parts, right? Where the body gets destroyed, the most of it gets destroyed first, and then the rest of it gets destroyed in a second wave, kind of reflects what happens to Jerusalem, and that the people get exiled, and then the city gets destroyed by the like the hair on his body.
Do you think it's really cannibalism?
Oh, I mean, the Bible says it was. The Bible says that the people in Jerusalem, as they were being laid to siege, ate their people. That's what the Bible says it in Jeremiah. And even if Jeremiah and Lamentations were written by the same people, Ezekiel says it as well. So these people seem to say that this is what happened. Look, there's another siege story in the book of Kings that we read, which talked about people eating their children. There's that famous scene in Kings where, it happens during the Assyrian siege where, people are mad because the one woman says, we ate my son yesterday and we were supposed to eat your son today, and now you're not letting us eat your son. I mean, and the king hears that and he's like, oh my gosh, I didn't, it's worse than even I thought it was. So, yeah, I mean, there's stories of it in the Bible, and this is, I mean, it's like the worst thing you can imagine. It's the worst thing you could imagine.
Assuredly as I live, said the sovereign God, because you defiled my sanctuary with all your detestable things and all your abominations, I in turn will shear you away and show no pity. I in turn will show no compassion. 1/3 of you shall die by pestilence or perish in your midst by famine. 1/3 shall fall by the sword around you, and I will scatter 1/3 in every direction and will unsheathe the sword after them.
Yeah, so it's right there. I mean, it says right there what the third, this is pestilence. War. And then 1/3 of you being driven into exile. And, that it's not going to be easy after you're in exile. So people are going to die by pestilence, they're going to die by and famine, they're going to die by sword, and then they're going to die by, the only thing you could say is that the 4 are kind of combined into 3, which is the first 2, pestilence and famine, are in one thing, and then the war is the next, and then exile is the 4th.
Is there any?
I will vent all my anger
wait,
and
wait, 1 second.
satisfy my.
1 second, Rosemary, 1 second.
Okay.
Is there any proof of cannibalism during the siege of Jerusalem?
No, only, we wouldn't find bones necessarily, but we found levels of where the destruction was that, there's no way to know, other than if the people said it happened. Why would they make it up? I mean, it's like, it's so horrible. Why would they make it up? And the stories, look, he's living outside the land of Israel already, right? He's telling people that's how bad it's going to get in Jerusalem. So if he's telling people in Babylonia, this is what's going to happen back in our homeland, to some extent, there might be some people who go, thank God we're here. Thank God we're not there. But you can imagine maybe part of the message is you're part of the lucky one right now, but that doesn't mean it's going to be easy. And it also means don't think you can go back anytime soon, which is probably one of the hardest things for these people to have to swallow, is that they are going to be in exile for their entire lives. They are not going back home. And he tells them why. This is a long time coming. This was a long time coming.
I will make you a ruin and a mockery among the nations round about you, in the sight of every passerby. And when I execute judgment upon you in anger and rage and furious chastisement, you shall be a mockery and a derision, a warning and a horror to the nations round about you. I, God, have spoken. When I loose the deadly arrows of famine against those doomed to destruction, when I loose them against you to destroy you, I will heap more famine upon you and break your staff of bread. I will let loose against you famine and wild beasts, and they shall bereave you. Pestilence and bloodshed shall sweep through you, and I will bring the sword upon you. I, God, have spoken.
Yeah, and so you see all those images: pestilence, famine, disease, the war. Again, these are the 4 horsemen, but they exist in Ezekiel as we saw them in Jeremiah, as this is the stuff that that are in the future for our homeland. It's a very scary situation. It's a very sad situation. And it's one that, it's one that it's not looking good. All right, we're going to read one more. This is also a kind of a short chapter, so we'll finish up with chapter 6 here today.
The word of God came to me. O mortal, turn your face toward the mountains of Israel and prophesy to them, and say, O mountains of Israel, hear the word of the sovereign God. Thus said the sovereign God to the mountains and the hills, to the streams and the valleys. See, I will bring a sword against you and destroy your shrines. Your altars shall be wrecked and your incense stands smashed, and I will hurl down your slain in front of your fetishes. I will cast the corpses of the people of Israel in front of their fetishes and scatter your bones around your altars in all your settlements. The towns shall be laid waste and the shrines shall be devastated. Thus your altars shall be laid waste and bear their punishment. Your fetishes shall be smashed and annihilated. Your incense stands cut down and your handiwork wiped out, and the slain shall fall in your midst. Then you shall know that I am God.
So he's in Babylonia. He looks back towards Israel, he's looking west. He's looking back towards Israel and saying, Israel, all those shrines that you have to other gods, they're going to be destroyed and they're going to be smashed. They'll be laid waste. And on top of it will be the bodies of those that are killed there. And that's going to be the punishment for the people for what they've been doing for the last several generations.
This has been going on for 500 years.
Correct. And he's saying this punishment now, this has been a long time coming, and it's going to wipe all those places out.
Yet I will leave a remnant, in that some of you shall escape the sword among the nations and be scattered through the lands. And those of you that escape will remember me among the nations where they have been taken captive, how I was brokenhearted through their faithless hearts that turned away from me, and through their eyes that lusted after their fetishes. And they shall loathe themselves for all the evil they committed and for all their abominable deeds. Then they shall realize it was not without cause that I, God, resolved to bring this evil upon them. Thus said the sovereign God, strike your hands together and stamp your feet and cry, aha, over all the vile abominations of the house of Israel, who shall fall by the sword, by famine, and by pestilence. Those who are far away shall die of pestilence, and those who are nearby shall fall by the sword, and anyone who survives and is protected shall die of famine. Thus I will spend my fury upon them. And you shall know that I am God, when your slain lie among the fetishes round about their altars, on every high hill, on all the mountaintops, under every green tree, and under every leafy oak, wherever they presented pleasing odors to all their fetishes. I will stretch out my hand against them and lay the land waste and desolate in all their settlements, from the wilderness as far as Diblah. Then they shall know that I am God.
Again, is it Diblah or Riblah? Riblah is in Syria, so that would be pretty far. So again, the difference between Diblah and Riblah is, we're not sure. There's a place called Diblah, but it doesn't seem to make as much sense as Riblah, which is all the way as far east as Syria, not too far away from where he is now. And again, the Dalet and the Resh are almost identical. So it could definitely be a scribal error. And it even says that some of the Hebrew texts actually use the word Riblah. So some of the, I'm not sure if it's the Dead Sea Scrolls, but some other Hebrew texts they found don't have Diblah. Anyways, the point is, this is going to go on all around Israel. All of these things are going to be destroyed. All of these altars will be the symbol of them going into, being destroyed will be that the people will not use them anymore. When the Jews came back after the exile, they did not use them anymore. Why? Well, they had the book of Ezekiel, they had Jeremiah, they had Isaiah, they had all these prophecies that came true. And they said, oh, we better not go back to those things. What's interesting, of course, is that the exiled community were the ones who set back up the community when they came back. Were there Jews that stayed behind? Yes. Not everyone died. but there were not enough of the people, and the people that came back were the leaders of the community, so that when we talk about the return from exile, these were the people, not Ezekiel, because Ezekiel doesn't. Ezekiel dies in exile. He dies in exile. Everyone in his generation and most of the next generation, for 70 years, they were in exile. But when they came back home, they did not do the same thing. The Jewish people did not go back to worshiping these idols. It was over. The experience of the exile cured them of that. Were there still weird idols to Zeus and later on to Roman gods? Yes, but they were not at the same level, and they did not seem to be popular amongst the Jews like these gods, these fetishes, these shrines were to our ancestors for the last 500 years, what the Canaanites were doing. Okay? You can say what you want, but we know, and the rabbis tell us, that the second temple was not destroyed because of idolatry. The second temple, according to the rabbis, was destroyed because the Jews were killing each other, because they were fractured as a people, because they hated each other. It was not because they were worshiping wrong. It was not because of their not understanding God. It was not that. That's what the rabbis explained it.
How did they come up with that?
They came up with it with the fact that they looked around and said, we're not worshiping other gods. And it wasn't like they were like, well, there are a few people who are worshiping other gods. This guy seems to like to have his Greek, whatever idols. It was so rare and it was so uncommon that they said, well, that God can't be mad at us for that. God can't let this happen because of that. They understood that they were being punished to some extent. God let the temple be destroyed because they were fighting amongst themselves. How did they know? Because they were. They knew they were. They knew what they were doing. They knew what King Herod was doing. They knew that the Pharisees hated the Sadducees and they hated the Essenes and they hated the Sicarii. They knew that. They knew it. And to some extent, how else are you going to make sense of what the Romans did to them other than God must have been pissed at us?
Yeah, so
The answer, of course, is the Roman Empire was too hard. It was too much for us to try to bring it down. But how are you going to explain that to people? How are you going to wrap your head around the fact that you have to just give up? Nobody wants to hear that. Again, could Jews have survived the Roman occupation? Yeah, probably. I don't know what the world would have looked like if we had, but it would have been much different. We could have. The problem is we didn't stop fighting. I've told you this before. We didn't stop fighting after the Romans destroyed the temple. The Bar Kokhba revolt 60 years later killed another 1 million Jews. And the Jews were fighting in Alexandria, and they were fighting in other parts of the Roman Empire after the temple was destroyed. So they didn't need to have the temple to stop fighting. Look, Jewish people fought for freedom, for their own freedom, even after they didn't even live in the land. The reason that Ezekiel even is in business is because he's got to convince his people that are living in exile, you got to suck it up. You're going to have to wait before you go back because it's going to get worse. Ezekiel's job essentially is to tell the people in exile, his colleagues, his friends, it is not you. We cannot go back. It's going to get worse. They're going to start eating each other in Jerusalem. They hadn't yet. It hadn't happened. It's going to happen. So that's his job. So it's not an easy job. To tell people to suck it up and you're going to have to deal with it. Nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to give that message. Who wants to hear that message? And clearly, the rabbis who were the most passive people during the time of, for the most part, during the time of the Romans, 500 years later, they couldn't stop it. They couldn't stop Jews from fighting against the Romans. Jesus' own people couldn't stop. He seemed to be pretty much a pacifist, Jesus. Seems, at least the description of the text, the Christian Bible. He can't stop his own people from fighting the Romans. So I don't know. It seems to go against, I know it goes against our understanding of who we are as a people, but who knows, if Israel was in the worst sense of the word destroyed in a war, do you think there wouldn't be Israelis that would continue to fight on after Israel itself was destroyed? Right? I mean, play it out in your head. I mean, it's a horrible thing to play out. Science fiction books based on it, but what if Israel is destroyed in a nuclear war? You don't think there's Israelis, you don't think there's Jews around the world that are going to take vengeance against the people who are responsible for that? I'm not sure I wouldn't. I don't know. Right? If Iran is responsible for it, or some Arab country is responsible for it, you don't think there's Jews around the world that are going to target the Arabs or Iran after that? Are you kidding me? So I don't know that we've changed a whole lot. I don't know that we can process this any other way. I don't know if we're capable of doing that. So you can kind of understand it. You can kind of understand why people didn't stop fighting. So let's just hope it doesn't happen. Let's just hope we never have to wrap our heads around the reality of that. So thank you, Rosemary, for taking us up to chapter 7. The next couple of chapters, actually, some of the upcoming chapters that we're going to read, these ones were actually, several of them were kind of short, but some of the ones coming up are a little bit longer. And I think everybody today, if you're hungry, go out and get some bread. Go out and go out.
Hopefully it wasn't baked on dung.
I have no desire to have that right now. I'm actually not hungry anymore. I was hungry before. I'm not hungry anymore. I haven't
How do
eaten
you,
yet today.
is that one of those allergic, they say baked on machinery using soy, wheat, and nuts? Does it
I don't know exactly.
machinery
They were tree nuts
human
used
dung?
in the cooking of this. No, I don't know, but I can tell you, I do not. I don't know if I would want to. I'm not going to have any of that bread today. The Ezekiel, we're going to come back after. Almost, not quite. Coming back the next few chapters, pretty much through chapter 11. This is going to be kind of the theme of Ezekiel, going through some stuff like this. And then again, Ezekiel's prophecies are going to be against Israel and against the other nations, getting more into prophecies and not just into this explanation of the performance prophecy, as I'd call it, performance prophecy. But again, we will see people this weekend. We'll see you at Yom Kippur. We'll wish everybody a Gemar Chatima Tova. I promise, though, there will be surprises. I don't know if they're going to be as dramatic as they were last weekend, but there are surprises. There are going to be some treats. There'll be some treats. What? Last year? Yom Kippur? Yeah, that was Kol Nidre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, was it Kol Nidre?
Yeah, that was Mike. Yeah, I told you that made the news. I don't know if anything's gonna, I don't know. But the point is, there'll be some nice stuff. And as I said, we do have break fast here at the end on Monday evening, and then we go into Sukkot. So we're going to have some stuff for Sukkot this year. And we're going to be doing some biblical things coming up. And that's all I'm going to say about that. In the words of Forrest Gump, that's all.
We should have a Monday night for breakfast. That's what the
Ezekiel. All right, maybe. maybe,
Great idea.
yeah, maybe. Again, we're gonna have, yeah, Neely is gonna be bringing out food for, last time he catered for too many, but anyways, a lot of good stuff to look forward to. All right, thank you again. Thanks, Rosemary. Thank you,
Thank
everybody, for
you.
being here, and we will wish everyone again a good seal in the book of life. Tomorrow night, we have class as we're reading Deuteronomy. Yeah, class next week. So we're getting ready for Sukkot. Take care, everybody. Take care. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye, thank you.
Bye-bye. Sukkot starts next